See if it moves us across to. Okay, so that should be starting in a second. Yeah, we're letting attendees in now, so give everyone a couple of seconds. Can you see, Selena, can you see the attendee list on the right-hand side?
Yes.
Yeah, I think given the group size, I think there's about whatever it was, 20 people or so. I think we should allow them to talk if they want to jump in and make it like really very much communication on both sides. What do you think?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Should we allow everybody to speak, or should we, like, if someone raises their hand, we can,
We can stop, or we can even do it at the end for Q&A. But I'm just thinking, yeah, rather than having them in a separate room, essentially, we can allow them in. So do you mind doing that while I share my screen?
yes. Am I allowed to do it all at once? I don't think I'm allowed to because I'm not the host.
Okay, maybe I can do it. That's all
Um,
right. I'll let everyone in.
or,
Here we go. Yep, it's working now. Yeah, we got it.
or
Yeah, we're
okay,
good.
perfect. Yeah.
We got it. Hey everyone. Be sharing the screen in a second. Bonnie, can you see this attendee list where you can just allow them to talk on the right hand side? Yep. Would you mind doing that while I share my screen? Perfect. Hopefully you can see that okay, guys.
Yep, looks good.
All right, we'll give everyone a couple of minutes because I know it's just one past and probably still letting people in.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hey
Hey,
Neil.
Neil. We'll just give everyone like maybe a minute more.
Yeah, we've got 15 in so far, I think. A couple more registered, so give them another 60 seconds or so and then we'll kick things off.
Hey, Adam, I do not know if I can unmute people because I think you're the host of this one.
Yeah, that's okay. I can actually see it on my side, so I'm able to do it. That's fine. Thanks, Bon.
Yeah, I can see it too, but I don't think I can unmute.
Okay.
But I will keep an eye on the chat if anyone wants to put the questions in the chat.
Perfect. All right, let's kick things off. So, Selena, I'll hand over to you for introductions and take it from there.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks everyone for joining us. Like we were discussing earlier in the call, at the end we'll have a Q&A session where we will allow everybody to kind of speak their questions rather than the traditional Q&A box. But if you still want to throw something in the chat or in the Q&A box below, feel free to ask any questions throughout the webinar. I wanted to introduce Adam Lesky from Trailed. Trailed is an AP automation solution that simplifies and accelerates the accounts payable for construction companies. Whether you're looking to reduce manual data entry or improve invoice tracking or better gain visibility into your cash flow, Trailed is a really powerful tool that a lot of our customers use that seamlessly integrate with Acumatica. They've just been such a great partner for us, and we work together very well as a team. So I'm happy to have Adam here to present the Trailed experience and what it could mean for your business. Adam, Go for it.
Perfect. Thank you, Selena. And yeah, it's been a pleasure working with the team at Strategies Group. As Selena said, we've been working together for many years on many different implementations and customizations and just making things work for our customers, and making them more efficient, more secure, and essentially better operating systems for you guys to support your growth and where you're going as a construction, in the construction vertical. As Selena said, just in terms of introductions, I'm actually one of the co-founders of the business. So I'm actually based in California, even though you've got my funny accent from the other side of the world in Australia. Spent a lot of time in the US, obviously supporting a number of different Acumatica sites. And I wanted to introduce Bonnie as well. So Bon, I'll hand over to you just for a general introduction and your experience and your role at Trailed.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for joining. I work alongside Adam as the director of sales here at Trailed. I've been in kind of the ERP and software world for, I would say, about 20 years now. And yeah, just happy to have you guys along. We're excited to show you guys what Trailed can do. And if there are any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Adam at the very end. And as I mentioned, if there's any questions along the way, feel free to throw it in the chat as well. I can keep an eye on that.
Excellent. So just to sort of start off around the idea of, sort of where Trail comes in and how it can help you, and sort of where the business came from. And I think it's a really important thing to understand because the company originated from industry. So obviously I had the experience of having a family business in industry, mainly in the agriculture space. And unfortunately, we had a business email compromise incident, which was really unfortunate, as it led to leakage in terms of funds for the business, and funds that we weren't able to recover. And so this slide is really just designed around, if you think about your credit card and the way that is enabled, whether it be through Visa or Mastercard, through Chase Bank, Bank of America, it really doesn't matter. That card has always on monitoring and algorithms in the background, analyzing your spend pattern and history and seeing if there's any anomalies. If your card gets misused and skimmed and goes off at 3 o'clock in the morning in Vancouver, you get an instant text notification from the bank to say, hey, Bonnie, was this actually you? It seems suspicious. Do you want to suspend the card or do you want to approve the transaction? When it comes to your business payments, you still start to think about it and go, well, where's that sort of level of security and protection, and our business payments? We've got all these subcontractors, we've got all these suppliers working on the different sites, and we're getting all these invoices through from different locations and different spots. How do we make sure that our business payments are protected in the same way that our credit cards are? And so this sort of stemmed from, as I said, very much industry, where my family business was delivering a whole bunch of pork and chicken to the equivalent of like Walmart in the US, right? And we had normal suppliers that we dealt with, regular suppliers. We had, approximately $2 to $3 million worth of AP spend a week because we were buying all sorts of different things like wood chips on a farm and different material and SKUs that we needed to make up the different sorts of feed. And one of the suppliers had actually had their email compromised and their systems compromised. And they were analyzing what was sitting in their inbox, and they took one of their supplier invoices, customized it, and sent it into the business. And luckily, through manual review processes, one of the three AP staff identified that there was a problem on the invoice and that the payment details had changed. And doing a good job, they called the supplier and said, is this the correct information? I say it's your Melbourne office, not your Western Australian office. Is there something unusual here? And they said, no, we've updated our banking details because we've created a new bank account. Can you please update them and make the payment accordingly? And the payment was for $150,000, so it wasn't a small payment. The AP team did what they needed to do. They updated the payment information and they paid the supplier invoice. A couple of days later, they received another supplier invoice from the same supplier, for a greater amount, and that invoice also got paid because the payment details had already been updated and stored in the ERP system. And then at the end of the week, or close to the end of the week, maybe 4 or 5 days later, we got a call from the supplier to say, I've delivered you hundreds of $1,000s worth of material and feed. Where's our payment? You've never missed a payment. Like, what's going on here? And for an agriculture business with large turnover and essentially really small margins, things get tight. Very similar to construction and manufacturing. At that point, we're like, what do you mean you haven't got paid? And it turned out that we'd been defrauded through a scheme called supplier impersonation or business email compromise. And unfortunately, the funds, part of the funds got stopped in Macau, and we went through a huge litigation battle in order to get that, that part of that money back. And so, essentially, where the business started was we were like, how do we make sure we provide that same level of protection that we have when we go to a restaurant, we swipe our credit card onto your B2B payment. So you have those same level of algorithms of protection rather than relying on essentially manual review from a finance team that are all busy doing what they need to do in terms of helping alleviate the business in different ways. So essentially, where does Trail come in? Essentially, we focus on two key aspects. We focus on AP efficiency. How do we make the process as efficient and streamlined and easy as possible, right? In the most automated fashion. And then while we're doing that, we don't want to just speed things up so it's so fast you pay everything. That's not the idea. The idea is to have it extremely as fast as possible with the barriers in place to give you visibility, control, and access to information at the right time so that any supplier mistakes or errors or even potential fraud, as I experienced in my family business, is able to be detected and managed as early in the early in the process as possible. One of the key aspects about Acumatica is, and the way we work with them is we're an embedded solution in Acumatica. So you'll see it all sort of living within the one environment. It's very much plug and play. When we talk about the integration, we have had customers, and Selena, and I and the team at Strategies Group have had customers live in hours, or days, not months and years to try and get this sort of stuff in, to see that return on investment and the benefit. And obviously, we're endorsed by Acumatica. So you purchase our software directly through the team at Strategies Group, and it gets added onto the Acumatica order form that you guys have today with your existing subscription.
Yeah, and just to highlight what you said, Adam, yeah, it really is a quick implementation. It's not like your ERP implementation that takes months. So it's kind of plug and play almost.
Yeah, absolutely. So just on that, I guess in construction, and we have hundreds of construction customers that use Trailed, a whole bunch of them obviously with Acumatica. And some of the key challenges that they have is obviously around how do they get the invoices in? How do they match them to the subcontracts or the purchase orders that they've raised? How do they make sure they're going to the right project, the right cost code? How do they make sure that when something's not right, they can speak to that project manager and have an audit trail of where it's gone, who's looked at it, who's approved it, if there is any anomaly or issue with the services that have been completed, what are we doing in terms of the holdbacks, the retainage? All of that complexity is actually built into a big part of the automation that Trailed solves when connected in with Acumatica. And so I'm not going to read all of them, but you get a context as to sort of some of the problems that you would have in your own business around AP, around approvals, and around the risk management side of what you're actually paying and making sure it's correct. So these are the issues and the complex challenges in construction that we specifically focus on. I guess the question is, well, what do we do that's different, right? So Acumatica has an out of the box generic, AP solution for some simple document automation. Where Trailed is really unique is it's built for the construction industry, it's built for manufacturing, it's built for some key verticals, and it's not a generalist system. So when I talk about that, I'm talking about things like retainage and holdbacks. I'm talking about things like project allocations and project accounting. I'm talking about matching to not only just purchase orders, purchase receipts, but also, what does it mean when there's a non-PO related invoice? What does your coding allocations look like? How do you deal with, a level of learning and machine enablement for automated, behavior in terms of analysis of what's normal for your business, what you should be approving, where the invoices should be going. And then obviously, we have a bunch of capability around supplier verification. So is that supplier legitimate and operating in the way that you would normally deal with them, all the way through to an executive review and payment execution. So we can take it from invoice consumption via email all the way through to payment execution. So if you're sitting there handwriting checks or printing and distributing checks out of Acumatica, you don't need to do that with Trail. We can print and distribute the checks for you. If you're processing ACH payments or EFT payments or wires, we have the ability to execute them through TrailPay. So really it is an end-to-end solution with that deep connectivity to your ERP. So what I'm going to do now is I want to sort of get straight into the crux of the product. I think that's where you guys will see the most value. And I'm going to take you through exactly how the system works. So if I just quickly flip over my screen here, hopefully you can see it. Is that still visible to everyone?
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so first things first, this is the trailed in tray. So this is the top of the funnel for everything to do with accounts payable when connected in with Acumatica. One really unique thing about Trailed is, as I said, we've become more native, more connected to Acumatica than ever. I don't know if I mentioned the number before, but we've got over 600 Acumatica sites using Trailed around the world. And so we've become more and more native to the Acumatica platform. In saying that, you can actually have Trailed embedded inside of the Acumatica. So, you're within the Acumatica login, you've got your multiple companies and branches that you're operating. You may be a finance person sitting in the journal entries, or, sitting in banking doing your reconciliations. And within the payable space that you're all familiar with, instead of going and having to key in information into the bills and adjustments section, we have three key components of the trailed module in Acumatica. You've got the trailed AP automation and approval workflow engine. You've got the trailed supplier onboarding and verification process, checking that it's a legitimate vendor across the platform. And you've got the trailed payments and processing. So as I mentioned, invoice in to payment out. If we just start on the trailed AP automation and approval workflow engine, this is where all of your invoices will come in via email. Now, there's a whole bunch of complexity around that. It sounds silly, but there's a whole bunch of applications where they can't deal with taking multiple invoices off an email at the same time and processing them into the platform, or even dealing with multiple attachments on an email, like 3 or 4 invoice attachments, or even multiple invoices inside a single PDF. Like, you may have people on site that turn around and say they get some hard copy invoices, they need to go and shoot them through a scanner, email them to Trailed. We can run them through and we can split them and automate that process. So there's a bunch of different complexity around getting documents into the tray in general solutions, but Trailed's able to deal with all that complexity. So as the invoices come in via email into the tray, it's going to automatically extract and classify all that data. If I needed to, for whatever reason, I can always upload files on demand, or I can even drag and drop them directly into the system for processing. So I'm going to show you a couple of different examples today, both PO, subcontract, non-PO related invoices. And in this case, I'm just going to go and grab a couple of different examples. Let's go and grab a couple of these now, and we'll process these through. As the invoices are running through the system, it's going to extract all the data and information from them. It's going to classify them to the right GL code, the right sub account, the right project, and it's going to have all that information visible in a draft state. So as those invoices begin to feed through, you'll start to see them land in a drafts queue. So within a couple of seconds, you'll see them land. It might just be my internet because I am hotspotting. So there we go. And the first invoice has landed in the queue. So you'll see this here, it's landed in a draft state, and it's classified and extracted all the information on the document. So the invoice number, who the supplier is that sent it through, the company or branch it relates to in Acumatica, the invoice date, the due date, the amount, and it's automatically assigned it to someone based on our workflow engine. So we've got a built-in workflow hierarchy and delegation of authority based on a bunch of different rules that we can talk about both on the invoice and in Acumatica. What's important here is as these invoices begin to land, it's actually going to order them. It's going to order these invoices based on which ones are PO related, which ones are subcontract related, which ones are inventory related, relating to receipts, and which ones are non-PO related, right? The system's even smart enough to go, well, okay, it's an invoice that relates to a purchase order, but have the services been completed? Has the subcontract been done? Have the items landed in inventory? So you can turn around, you can actually have the system put things on hold when you're still waiting for the services completed or the items to be receipted. So it allows you to prioritize your time, which invoices have come in and been automated and matched, and which ones need additional review as a part of that process. If I just drill into the first supplier invoice here, what you're going to see is it displays a digital copy of that invoice that's come in from the supplier, and it's extracted all the key information from that document on that left-hand side. So you'll see the header level information has been extracted off the document, as well as the associated matching to the purchase orders, receipts, and or subcontracts. You've also got your project classifications, your project tasks, your cost codes, and you've got your activity log and your cost and your allocation coding. So your GL codes, your sub account coding, and who the invoice has been assigned to. So I'm just going to go through each one of these components one by one, explaining exactly how the system works from an automation standpoint. So if you have a look here, if I click on the invoice total, can you see the big red box, guys, around the invoice total on the document, the $2,200?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what's key here is there's a lot of generalist automation or OCR technology out there where it extracts the data off the document. That's not really where the value comes in. OCR is really an off-the-shelf commodity that you can buy anywhere today. Where the value comes in is understanding what that data actually means within the context of your business. So essentially what we have is we have a layer of automation, which is extracting the technology, the data extraction technology. And then on top of that, we have a classification engine that understands what that data means. Is it a numeric field? Is it a date? Is it a string? Is it a character? What does that data in the context of your business actually mean? And then it allows you as an AP clerk to select any component on the document because it's been classified. So essentially here, I can turn around and say, I always want to pay this supplier on the amount due. I never want to pay them on the invoice total. I can select that. The system is now going to memorize that for that particular supplier, we always pay them on the amount due, never the total amount. And it's going to populate that field correctly moving forward. That machine learning is basically doing behavioral analytics in the background and saying what is normal for your business, and it's populating the correct information every time. So that machine learning is applied on every single field. It could be the invoice number, could be the purchase order number or subcontract number, could be the invoice date, could be the due date. Essentially, it's pulling and classifying all that data. As it's doing that, it's also running the information through our risk algorithm and detecting, is there anything that's unusual here? Has the supplier invoice been sent through with 7-day payment terms on the document, but your actual payment terms and contractual terms in Acumatica are 30 days? Hence, the system's going to flag an urgent payment warning. Has the invoice come through from an unusual location, similar to what happened in my family business where the payment details were compromised? Is the system going to be able to turn around and say, yes, there's an issue here? Of course. It's going to flag and say the payment details detected that have come through on the invoice and where it's come from are unusual given the payment information stored against the supplier in Acumatica and given what we've historically transacted with that supplier using the payment details over the previous 12 months. So the system, from a risk management point of view, is analyzing everything as it comes through, including things like excess supplier charges, inactive government registration details, tax validation, duplicate invoices. There's a myriad of both government and third-party data sources that are being checked and validated as we automate the process. Because, as I mentioned, efficiency without control just means you pay everything. So we want to give that balance between the two issues. Awesome. So at this point, invoices, as we said, come through. It's automated all the information and the data from the document. In this case, everything looks good. It's actually pulled out the PO number or the subcontract number directly from the document. And you can see here it's automatically linked in each of the subcontract, purchase order, or receipt lines. In this case, it's going to show me the actual PO that was raised or subcontract that was raised in Acumatica. It's going to show me the quantity that was ordered, the unit cost. If it's an inventory item, it'll be receipted. If it's not, it'll be a subcontract. And it'll pull through all that associated coding. So the descriptions, quantity, unit cost, GL codes, projects, tasks, cost codes, everything's there. As well as if for any reason, say the invoice came through for an unusual amount, say came through for $4,200, it's going to flag an instant $2,000 variance there. Based on the system integration with Acumatica, we can actually route this back to the project manager, the person that's actually sitting on the construction site that raised the subcontract or the purchase order, and it's going to define that routing directly back to Karen on site. I can even put in an interactive comment, let's say, like we do on LinkedIn, and say, Karen, this has come through, massive PPV. Can you check this out as soon as possible? Right? And Karen's going to now get notified on her mobile and via email, and she's going to be able to deal with this. We can go back and forth to resolve this issue while I put it on hold in the system in an auditable way. So even if it's allocated to the wrong project or the wrong amount's been delivered or what suppliers charge us over what they should, we're going to have that visibility as soon as the document comes in and be able to manage it throughout our digital approval workflow process. But in this case, actually everything's fine. The invoices come through, it's extracted all the data and information from the document, it's matched the purchase order and subcontract lines, there's no variance. I go ahead and submit this invoice. We have a new process called touchless invoicing. So essentially when the invoice comes through and it matches the purchase order, subcontract or receipt, and it's a low risk invoice, you actually don't even get to go through that submission process. It automates the extraction, the classification, the matching, and the processing for you. In this case, it's saying, okay, it's a low risk invoice. It's all good from a security point of view. It's auto approved based on the matching to the purchase order and subcontract. That's gone directly into Acumatica for batching and for payment. To give you an idea of the pace of this process, this is another invoice that's come through. And again, it's extracted all the data and the information from the document. It's pulled out the purchase order number on the invoice and it's linked it through to that associated purchase order in Acumatica. We can see again here the information that's come through, the associated coding, GL codes, sub-accounts, projects, cost codes, so on. And I can go ahead, and in this case, if I had touchless invoicing on, it would come in, it would automate all this data, it would automatically link to the purchase orders, receipts, or subcontracts, and it would automatically submit it. And then if it was within our parameters, it would actually auto approve it again and send it directly into the bills and adjustments section as a released bill. So very much that efficiency process with that risk management analysis as the invoices are feeding through the system. If you're dealing with any non-PO related invoices, so overhead expenses like utilities, gas, water, rent, whatever it might be, the process is the same. They come into Trailed via email. It extracts all the data and information, but it analyzes and goes, no, there's no PO number on this document. And because there's no PO number on this document, it's going to turn around and say, well, maybe you need to read the line level detail here and allocate them to different GL codes, for example. So the system will do that in an automated way, or I can click add from invoice here, and it's going to read every single line off the document. It's going to classify the descriptions, the quantities, the unit costs, and all of the associated coding, again, pulled through from Acumatica. If for whatever reason I needed to split the coding, maybe I needed to go them to different projects. You can see it's automatically allocated to project 78. Maybe I needed this to go to project 78 on one line, but actually on another line, I needed to go to project 76. So I can turn around and allocate a different cost code, a different task, a different project on a line level as well. Or I can turn around here and say, actually, GL code for this line needs to go to freight expenses. And the system is going to memorize and actually learn specifically for this supplier, when I deal with this particular description or line item, this actually needs to go to freight expenses every time, even though the default GL code is other expenses at the header level. So the system has the machine learning capability, not only on the header information, but also on the line information and on the coding allocations. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this invoice now. And what you'll see is because I've submitted it, it's going to run through our approval process because there's nothing to validate it against. We don't have a subcontract. We don't have a PO. We don't have items that are receipted from inventory. This one needs to be reviewed and assessed. If for whatever reason, and we see this more and more with construction, if for whatever reason someone emailed you an invoice directly into the system and it came through from your AP mailbox, the system is still going to run it through the detection system and say, hey, this invoice is a duplicate. It's either already in Acumatica. If you click here, it'll open up, or it's already come into Trail more than once. If I try and submit this invoice, it's going to do exactly what it should do. It's going to flag it as a duplicate. If I try and submit it, it's going to, come up with all sorts of warnings. And actually, I'm going to trash this out. The system's protecting me from paying the same supplier twice on the same invoice number and the same invoice. I'm going to trash that out, and it's going to take me to the next invoice in my queue. One other invoice I just want to quickly show you guys, and I think it's really relevant given the construction aspect, is the one with holdbacks and retainage. So what you'll see here is this is another invoice that's come into the system, and this is for a couple of suspended slabs that we ordered, some finished stairs that were done. All of this done by a subcontractor, Roger Rabbits. You'll see here again, the system has extracted all the data and information, and it's matched the supplier within the invoice to a supplier in our Acumatica system. And when it does that, it pulls through all the information, so the payment information, the payment terms, the holdback amount or percentage, the currency, everything like that. But in this case, you can see it's pulled out the subcontract number directly off the invoice, and it's going to match it to each of the subcontract lines. So you can see here, here's each of the subcontract lines related to that vendor for this particular project, and it's actually linked them all through. So when the invoice comes through and it matches to the subcontract, it's going to bring through not only each of the subcontract lines, it shows me the subcontract PO that was raised, the the services amount, the cost of those services, the retainage rate, the retainage holdback, and who the project manager or PO owner was, as well as obviously applying not only the holdback at the header level, but the holdback and retainage on each of the lines. So this is just giving you that idea of, again, how it allocates the correct GL code, project, sub-account, and so on, while matching to the subcontracts. Awesome. Once the invoices have gone through that process, obviously any exceptions or anomalies are going to run through our approval process. So any, high risk invoices that may have excess supplier charge, whatever it might be, they're going to be allocated out to the person on site, and they're going to be able to see the supplier invoices that are allocated to them, how much they're for, and when they're due. And as an approver, I can drill down and I can actually see exactly what's been allocated to me and why. I have a view of the digital invoice. If I'm out on site, I may need to upload some supporting documentation, maybe something to go with it, the packing slip or whatever it might be. I can see it's low risk. It's well within my normal supplier average. I can see all the line details that have been classified. all the extracted data, but I noticed actually the finance team have allocated this to the wrong project. Depending on my permission levels, I can turn around here and say, actually, this needs to go to project 78. You've got it wrong. And it's now got a timestamp that I allocated and adjusted that project for this on approval. And I can turn around now and I can actually approve this invoice and get it exported to Acumatica. So then what it's going to do is it's going to drop me to the next invoice in my queue. And this is an example of a high risk problematic invoice. Okay. This is one you absolutely want your team to be able to see and manage accordingly. So it's come up as high risk because it's saying it's for nearly $3,000. Which is a considerable increase in cost given our normal supplier average and bell curve over a 12-month period using our standard deviation. So between this excess supplier charge that's outside our normal behavior and trend, in combination, there's a payment details alert. I can see my colleague, one of the colleagues that working with me on project, XYZ, has said they've initially looked at it and have flagged it to me due to thinking it's a problem. It's routed through to me. I've assessed it. I'm uncomfortable with it given the excess supplier charges. I'm going to reject this back, put it in a holding pattern due to incorrect price or quantity issues, or maybe it's a problem with the services completed or the quality, or maybe it's a compromised invoice. Either way, I've got that visibility and control when I'm actually dealing with these exceptions. So if I reject this back, it's going to shoot back into finance in a holding pattern. And now I've dealt with a few exceptions in my tray. Everything else has been automated, matched, validated, run through the risk assessment, and it's seamlessly integrated into Acumatica. In terms of these approval workflows, essentially you can set up as many automated routing workflows as you like. I've come in here and I've set up a couple of specific auto approval rules like touchless invoicing to say when the invoices come in and they're low risk from a risk point of view and they match the purchase order and purchase receipt and the line items match and the quantities match and the unit costs match, then auto approve it. That's totally fine. I've created another rule here, though, specific to a project to say when the invoices are greater than $100,000, they need to go to Karen when it relates to this specific branch or company in Acumatica. And these are the conditions. When the invoice equals this or greater than $100,000, the GL code is this and the supplier is this. But you know what? I actually want it to be project related as well. And when it relates to project like, let's say project like project 78 or project equals project 78, I now want that always to route through to Karen. So Karen's going to get all of those invoices automatically allocated to her. When she reviews it and approves it, it's going to then go to our secondary level of approval to Mark for final sign off, given the amount of those invoices coming through. We can set up multiple levels of approval hierarchy. Maybe it's Karen and Brad that are sitting on site for that particular project and running point. It's going to go to Karen and Brad. Whoever gets to it first will approve it, and then it'll run through to Mark for final review and sign off. So you can have built-in multi-level approval hierarchies based on approval limits and even route invoices based on key conditions like the project owner, PO owner, GL code, sub-account, and so on. So it makes it seamless to get the documents around the organization as they're coming in via email. The other piece around this is really about the management of your business. Like when people go on leave or they're not available, you don't want to just stop paying your suppliers, right? You rely on those suppliers and those subcontractors in order to build your residential apartments and run your business. Essentially, as well as take advantage of things like pay early discounts, right? If you don't have visibility on it, you can't do that. So essentially, Trailed has a delegations of authority capability where you can say for a particular project or a particular branch, I'm going away on leave. I know I'm heading out on leave. I need everything temporarily for that project taken care of by Karen, effective until the end of the month. That means everything that comes through based on those automated workflows, or essentially that's sitting in my tray, is now going to automatically route through to Karen for review and approval for her to manage that process. So our suppliers continue to get paid. We don't miss out on our pay early discounts, and we can run and operate our business as we would. It's not halted based on a single individual or person in the business. Awesome. Once those invoices have run through that automation, matching, validation, approval process, as a finance team, you have complete visibility across everything in the organization. You can see where things are sitting at pending approval. Great, nothing's been actioned. I can filter on which company or branch I need to look at. I can see which invoices have been pushed back in a holding pattern, in a holding queue because they were high risk. Well, I wonder why Adam sent that back. Oh, okay. He rejected it due to pricing concerns. It was actually emailed in by Mark. This was the GL code, the sub account, the project. Got it. I'll follow up with the supplier. Adam's flagged it with me. It makes sense. Most of the time, you're going to be dealing with your approved invoices, and you can set up an auto export here, or you can bulk export. Most of our customers have them seamlessly exported directly into Acumatica. And so what will happen is when they're exported, they're going to land directly in the bills and adjustments section. And if we just have a look here, and I'll go into one of the examples, essentially this invoice has come through and it's landed in Acumatica in an open release state because it's already gone through all the checks and balances, it's gone through the automation, it's gone through the approvals, and you can see that here. You've got your trailed risk score, you've got who approved it in trailed and the trailed approval date, and you've also importantly got the attached documentation. So here, you'll see not only the PDF document is stored of the invoice in Acumatica, but also the supporting documentation. So if I'm and I'll just see if I can hide this thing for a second because can't get to my hide floating meeting controls. Sorry, I'm just trying to move the screen across so I can show you guys the mobile view. Here we go. Perfect. So if I'm on site and I need to deal with an invoice approval, I can click here. It's going to show me the essential notification of being allocated this invoice, both by mobile push notification and email. I'm going to be able to see the risk score. I can approve, reject, skip. I can even say this is above my approval limit, and it'll grey out the approve button and force me to delegate it. But if I'm out there and I need to upload supporting documents, I can do that easily on my mobile. It'll upload and it'll sync those documents directly into the export process, centralizing everything together. So essentially, you've got your release bill with all of your information and your supporting docs stored in the system. If I just drill down here quickly, you're going to see all the data has now been populated. So all of your vendor information, the terms, the due date, the amounts, and all of your line item detail, including the linking of this information to the original purchase order or subcontract. So you'll see here, as the invoices come through and been automated, all of the header and line detail, it's also hyperlinked it into the original purchase order and subcontract. So if I click on here, as a part of the integration and the deep linking between the two systems, the purchase order has been fulfilled. So it's actually closed out that purchase order as the AP bills come through from trailed. Here is your AP bill that's come through with your associated attachments. Your closed out purchase order. In this case, it's inventory related. So it's also linked through the items and receipt and the inventory items and receipts. There's your three-way match with all of your documentation centralized in Acumatica. At this point, most of our customers will prepare their payments. So they've got their released bills in Acumatica and the bills and adjustments area. They're ready to start preparing their payments. They're going to select which payments they want to make based on the due date of the invoices or the suppliers or forecasted cash flow. And they're going to run their check runs or they're going to run their ACH payments. When they create that payment batch, it's going to automatically feed into the payments area in Trailed. So if I just jump back down into the trailed system, you've got a supplier onboarding process, which I'll cover in a second, and you've got the payment processing. So in here, as a part of the payment processing, you're going to have an executive oversight. So as a CFO responsible for making this $8,000 payment, you can see what it relates to. So you can see, is it a card payment? Is it a check payment? Is it an EFT payment, an ACH payment? And you can actually drill down here, and this is a digital review of your payment file. So it's going to show you, exactly how much the payment run is for. It could be 8,000, it could be 8 million. It doesn't make a difference. It's going to show you the payment method and whether it's been approved or not in trailed. It also shows you the 16 or 17 suppliers that you're about to pay that make up that payment batch, the payment reference number of those suppliers in Acumatica, and whether they've been verified by Trail during onboarding. So we have an independent verification process, both looking at government databases and third-party databases to check things like government registration details, tax validation, banking and routing information across the platform. So there's a bunch of checks and balances that happen during onboarding, and I'll talk more to that when we jump into the suppliers tab. You're also going to be able to see each of the supplier payments that you're about to make and how much they're for, and the full 12-month payment history. So in this case, I can see any peaks and anomalies that might be here in terms of my transactional history over a 12-month period with my vendors, as well as the system's not saying, well, find the needle in the haystack. It's actually identifying it for you. It's saying, here are the 3 highest risk or problematic payments in this payment run. Everything else is absolutely fine. It's completely aligned with how you normally deal with this vendor, all in alignment with the POs and the subcontracts that you've raised. But in this case, this $988 payment, it's saying that the invoice invoices that have come into Trailed are actually less in value than what's generated in your payment file. So there's something not right here. So I can turn around from the payment file and I can drill down directly to the invoices that make up that supplier payment. Here, this supplier payment for $70 to Keith Simmons Engineering is made up by 5 or 6 separate invoices. These are the invoice numbers that have come through Trailed. This was the risk score, and this was the entire approval path. I can see when it came in, who looked at it from an AP perspective, who looked at it from an approval perspective, who approved it, and who actioned it. Everything's trackable. In this case, it's telling me that $65 of value went through the AP platform for that time period with that supplier, but actually $70 has been pushed through into Acumatica and $70 in my payment file. So someone skipped the Trailed process and keyed a bill directly into Acumatica potentially, and it skipped our automation and risk checks. So that's not ideal. So I'm going to turn around here and type in a note to Karen and say, Karen, can you please chase this up? Why is there an invoice that's missing in Trailed that hasn't been checked properly, but sitting in Acumatica? Or I can even turn around and say, this $26 payment seems odd. I'm going to drill down and have a look at exactly what happened here. So when you're responsible for that $8 million payment or $8,000 payment, you're going to be able to drill down and say, okay, there was the invoice that came in. It was assigned to Adam for review. I can see the purchase order and the purchase receipt or subcontract that are matched to. There were no variances. It was submitted on this date. This was the coding allocations and the project. I'm comfortable, all good. So I can see everything now. Everything's fine. I can turn around and I can actually approve and process this payment. So if we approve it here and pay, we can actually take the payment method, whether it's a banking and routing information via ACH, we can process the payment. Whether it's a check number and a supplier address and an amount, we can actually print and distribute the checks on your behalf. So all of that paper shuffling at the end of the process, it's now become digitized. So you've now got a full overview of what you're paying, why you're paying it, any risks or anomalies that flagged, and we can execute the payment directly through TrailPay for you to your suppliers. Awesome. One other thing is around supplier management and compliance. It's such a big thing for construction. When you add your suppliers into Acumatica, say I go into one of my vendors here, and I'm going to go and create a new vendor in Acumatica, okay? When I go and create that vendor, it's going to require me to put in a bunch of information like the 1099. It's going to require me to put in payment information and purchase information. All that sort of stuff is all going to be added in Acumatica. When that gets added into Acumatica, it's going to automatically feed that supplier or that subcontractor directly into Trailed under the suppliers tab. And that's when it kicks off the verification process, checking things like business registration details and banking information. What's also important is if for whatever reason a supplier was updated in your master data for whatever reason, say someone impersonated, Selena's email address and sent me an email and said, hey, I need this paid ASAP. It went to Daniel and, it's come from Selena. It looks normal. So, we go and update it. The minute that information gets updated, the system reruns the verification on that supplier and says these new payment details that have just been updated in the system have never been used before on the platform. They're unverified, and it's going to send a relevant email and text notification to the relevant party so they're aware of that. So when they get to the payments page, they know exactly what they're dealing with and they're not processing anything that might be problematic. The other thing on compliance is essentially every subcontractor or supplier can have their information indexed here. So you've got your supplier information, there's your supplier, you've got your life cycle of your invoices, and you've also your document management capability. So you've got the ability here to upload supporting documents specifically appended to the vendor. And why that's important is everything gets indexed then against the vendor. So if you've got things like 1099 or compliance documentation, contract stuff, all of that can be linked against the specific vendor and stored in this documents component, which is indexed by which company or branch it relates to, which supplier it might be related to, or even what the document type is. Is it an invoice attachment? Is it a batch payment or supplier statement, supplier doc? Everything is essentially available for you here. And we even have the ability to be able to search by project. So I can turn around and say, in this case, I'll search by, whatever it might be, the source reference number. I click on that, and it's now going to open up that supported document in the system. Awesome. So essentially, guys, that's everything from invoice in all the way through to payment out in that connected ecosystem with Acumatica, as you can see, seamlessly working together. What I'm going to do quickly is I'm just going to shoot back to the PowerPoint presentation, take you through a couple of extra things. This is really about the ROI and the payback. It should be pretty straightforward. This was a study done by the IRS. It's been continually done every year, but it's pretty good insight as to the sort of overhead costs of processing AP bills. And this is sort of the salary costs, the chasing approvals, manual matching and validation to subcontracts, purchase orders. It's that entire process sort of from getting an invoice through manually all the way through to getting it paid, including printing the checks. So they say it's on average about $26 per document. With a system like Trailed, given the automation and the validation and checks against your system and ERP, you reduce that cost by approximately $19 per invoice. So $7 per document. So essentially, you're looking at about a total saving of $19 per invoice. If you applied that saving to approximately, let's say, 300 invoices, you're looking at saving approximately $70,000 per year in overhead salary costs, right? Just in terms of the operational costs of that AP process. So if you think about it, it's not just about replacing headcount, it's about elevating your staff. If they can do better things to help you grow your business rather than keying in data and trying to match and validate where systems can do this stuff and also do it at a more accurate level, what could your business do with that extra time and resource to help you grow and take your company to the next level? And then as we make it faster, it's that question of the ever-evolving threats. We're seeing it more and more today with things like ChatGPT, more advancements in AI and impersonation. This was the size of the problem in the US economy last year. $12.5 billion were lost just to the sort of business email compromise attack that impacted my family and my family's business. 22% increase year on year, a material thing that really hurts the bottom line. In our case, nearly sent us broke. And the sort of average amount stolen is in excess of $100,000. So how do we make sure we try and help businesses mitigate that risk and hope that it doesn't happen? Essentially, the payback on the software should be standalone on the ROI benefit and the automation, but we've also got to take into account, well, what happens when something goes wrong in terms of the risk side of things. In terms of customers, as I mentioned, we've got over 600 Acumatica customers now around the globe using Trailed. These are just what some of them have to say about the product. Feel free to jump on the YouTube page for a bunch of customer testimonials from both our customers with Strategies Group and other customers as well. But these are sort of what people have to say about the product. And sort of I'll open it up for questions and answers. Back over to you, Selena and/or Bonnie.
Yeah, anybody is welcome to ask a question if you just want to unmute and ask something. But also feel free to throw any questions that you have in the chat. We can certainly answer those.
And you're more than welcome to tell me off for going too fast and that you couldn't understand my accent, and I can go again if you like.
So these invoices flow straight from an email straight into the system, or are we dropping and dragging them into the system?
No, Neil, we can set up an auto forward. So if you've got a centralized AP mailbox, we can actually set up a rule from that mailbox to auto forward everything into a unique Trailed email account. It'll ignore all the correspondence and it'll just push through the invoice attachments into the system for processing.
Okay. And then one issue we have here is always on the lookout for improperly billed sales tax, where we've been charged sales tax and we shouldn't. Now, in some cases, we operate in multiple states. In some cases, obviously, we're going to pay the sales tax, but and then others we're not.
Yep.
Could the system be helpful for that?
Absolutely. So there's a really key thing about the integration with Acumatica on that. So we pull through the tax categories from Acumatica, and each tax category, you have a tax category generally assigned to a vendor. And so whether it's tax inclusive or tax exclusive and what the rate is of that tax. The other option as well, if you don't want to calculate it automatically off the tax category, you can actually teach the system where to pick up the tax amount off the document. And it can learn exactly what the taxable and non-taxable supply is. Because I imagine we see this with perishable goods like food. You will have items that are VAT inclusive and VAT exclusive. And so you can train the system exactly what to look for in that case.
Yeah, I would say ours is more location based. We just moved from Memphis, Tennessee, just south to Olive Branch, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that we buy here in Mississippi and pick up or take possession of here, we get free of sales tax. Whereas if we buy it and take possession of it in Tennessee, then we get charged the sales tax. So ours is more
Location based.
more location based.
Neil, when you say location, are you talking branch? Like, is it branch location in Acumatica? You select a branch or actual location department?
Just location from the standpoint of the only physical place we have now is in Olive Branch, but if the guys, they're driving up to do the work in Memphis and Shelby County, Tennessee, and they pick stuff up on the way, then obviously those items are going to be taxed because they bought them in Tennessee.
Got it. So it's if it's location A, it has tax rate A, and if it's location B, it has tax rate B. Yeah, we can definitely have a look at that. I'd be keen to find out, see some more examples, but we've dealt with stuff like that before.
Yeah, and then the subcontractor invoices keep me up at night more than anything because, like you said, and like you mentioned in your examples, typically on a material supplier, you're going to have hopefully a good purchase order with a maximum amount on there. The system can help match to the purchase order and the maximum amount, maybe help keep over billings from the materials. Quite often on subcontractors, it can get a little more sloppy on our end. It's not uncommon for me to get in there and see quotes entered into the subcontractor invoices instead of invoices. That's something I'm sure if the system could pick up on the fact that it says quotes instead of invoice, maybe it could reject those items.
Yeah, we have to set up a rule for that, but yes, we could.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Was there any other questions I'm just having a look in the Q&A. Okay, so apologies. So from Ellen, do you have an example of a more detailed G702, G703 type billing with more lines in the schedule of values? Ellen, I'm not sure if you're muted or you're not. Do you want to just jump in and give me some more context of that? Are you talking about partial fulfillment, where you raise a PO or subcontract for 10 items, 3 services are completed on one, and then 7 services are completed on another? Is that what you're referencing there? Just make sure you can talk. I've just let you in, so hopefully you can just unmute yourself.
Sure. This is Ellen. We're a construction company, but we typically get subcontractor bills that are in like a construction AIA type of billing with a G702 cover page and a G703 detailed schedule of values following that.
Got it.
And I think most of the examples I saw were more looked like invoice based with a few lines. So I wasn't sure if the system is already set up to handle like the more detailed.
It absolutely is. So we've got lots of construction customers that send us through packets, which has got like it's got the first pay, it's got like a broken down like the pay app side of things. So I guess the best way to do it, Ellen, would be to get some examples from you of these invoices and take you through a personalized demo with your invoices and show you how to work. But definitely worked with all those sorts of different complications. It doesn't have to be a straight single page invoice with 5 lines on it. It might be 5 different documents in a one file that's come through. Maybe the invoice is one of those 5 files where it'll pick up the invoice total, the dates, the terms, all that sort of stuff. But you're going to have other supporting documents sitting behind it, like schedules of work, things like that.
Great, thank you.
Problem.
Adam, we have another one about pricing. Somebody asked, how is the pricing for the product itself structured?
Okay, so it's really simple. This is the nice part about Trailed and the way we work with Strategies Group and Acumatica. Essentially, it's an unlimited user model. It aligns perfectly to what you experience in Acumatica. It's all based on the number of invoices that you process. So your average 12-month invoices that you're processing through the business over a 12-month period, and number of operating companies and entities that you're running those invoices through. So it's really simple. You can have as many approvers on the platform as you like, as many people using it. The idea is to get you value onto the platform. And it's also all on the Acumatica price list. So you just add it through your existing Acumatica subscription, and it gets bolted onto your existing annual renewal or monthly renewal, depending on how it's configured. Excellent. Was there any other questions, guys? Just I know we've got a couple of spare minutes, but we're nearly run to time.
Celine, I don't know if this would be a question for you, but you know, in our system, when we're entering invoices, we're as heavily service order entered as we are projects. And a lot of times when we're entering invoices from vendors that go to service orders, the process is quite different. I guess would that still, I mean, I'm assuming that issue would still be an issue under this new system as well.
Adam, do you think we would be able to solve that using Trailed?
Is that more on the sales order side or is it more on the AP side?
Yeah.
Are you talking, Neil, are you talking about the automation on the side? Can you just give me a bit more context on that?
We don't use sales orders, we use service orders.
Okay. So you
Yeah,
use
so the field service product in Acumatica.
yeah, so using the field services. Okay, and yeah, let's take that offline, Neil. I'll have a chat with you. We might want to do a one-on-one product demonstration and run through some of the capability on field services. It depends on how you've got it configured.
Right. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, and Neil, I can also talk to Daniel about that too and see if it's a possibility. And we'll all talk with Adam and see how that works. I don't know if we have anyone currently using the service system and Trail together.
I've got one
That's it.
customer. I've got one
Okay.
customer, but they had to heavily customize some of it. And yeah, so I just want to see what you're using and how you're using it, Neil, and then we can just determine you know, whether that's viable in terms of achieving the outcome that you want.
Right.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone for carving out an hour of your day to come and see the Trail product and how it works with Acumatica. And a huge shout out to Selena and the team at Strategies Group for hosting this. So Selena, I'll hand back to you to wrap everything up.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Adam, for presenting on this. I know it's a very timely topic too, with so many people getting phishing attacks, so many people getting cyber or just not knowing if invoices are real or fake. I think part of that is really big here. Thank you so much for presenting. But if anybody has any additional questions or if they were a little shy to speak on the webinar, feel free to reach out to me or Adam or Bonnie directly. Anyone at the Strategies Group team can get you in contact with Trailed if you have any specific questions, or we're pretty versed on the topic as well internally, so we'll be able to get your questions answered. But yeah, we'll give you 4 minutes back, and thank you all for joining the call.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks.